What's the best way you've seen someone rebel against school rules? Back in the 1980s there was one kid in my school was hardcore into the punk scene. Had a bright blue, 6 inches high, razor thin, stand up straight mohawk. The principal gave him detention for being a distraction, etc. And his parting words that day were, "And tomorrow, no more blue mohawk." Double quote. The next day the kid came in with the same mohawk, only bright pink. No hats in school. In high school junior year, there was this one kid in my grade that was allowed to due to him having alopecia universalis, which is basically having rapid baldness. A new teacher wasn't aware that he was allowed to and asked him to take it off. The kid explained why he was able to, but the sub didn't believe him, forced him to take it off, and was being very cruel to him for wearing the hat his lack of hair. The next day, everyone wore hats to school as a sort of rebellion against the teacher. She got really mad and started yelling at the students and said some nasty things. She got fired. Senior year, my school banned jackets. A friend was cold, wore his jacket to lunch, and the VP told him to take it off. Friend pulls out the student handbook and asked where it said he couldn't wear it. VP flips for a while and ends up showing him the dot or anything the administration seems disruptive clause. Friend rolls his eyes but takes off his coat. The next day, friend comes in with the same tweed sport coat the VP wore every day. After the Columbine shooting, our school banned black trench coats. For the most part, nobody cared, except the mysteriously gothic trench coat kid. He had worn a trademark black trench coat every single day because it made him different. And then all of a sudden the school tells him he can't do that anymore. So the kid went out of his way to find, or make, different colored trench coats and wore those instead. My favorite one was covered in duct tape. TLDR. Gothic Joseph in the Technicolor trench coat. I was at a private school that had rules about the length of boys' hair. One guy in particular always ignored the rule and the administration would tell him to get a haircut every so often. But he never did. Eventually when his hair got about down to his shoulders the principal pulled him aside and told him his hair was twice the allowed length and by next week it needed to be shortened by half. Monday rolls around and he comes in with half his head shaved, and the other side as long as ever. We were impressed by literal interpretation of the principal's request, but it still ended up with him getting a suspension for a week and he had to shave the other side before he could come back. After 9/11 my school made a rule where we had to wear our school IDs. They went overboard quick handing out detention to anyone who didn't wear one. One kid had his ID blown up and put on a shirt. On the back it said, "Yes, I'm wearing my F-King ID." He got detention for not wearing it with the shirt. Just after the Virginia Tech shooting, when I was in high school, the administration banned backpacks, messenger bags. Purses were okay though. One guy shows up to school with a purse. They suspended him for 2 days. The next day, most of the guys showed up with purses carrying all of their things. They lifted the backpack ban. Edit. Looks like it wasn't just my school either. Last day of senior year, we started a food fight at lunch. And by food fight, I mean we drew angry faces on an orange and an apple, then faced them toward each other, made a big circle around them, and we all reacted like we were watching a fight. All the security guards ran to break up the fight, only to make their way to the middle of the circle to find 2 pieces of fruit sitting on the ground. Edit. Lots of comments about security guards in schools. In the USA it's just so common I don't even think about its bizarreness anymore. In many states here, schools not only have a security guard, but a police officer as well. Friend was told in high school by his guidance counselor not to waste his time applying to his dream school because he wouldn't get in. He got pissed off and went to the principal, who told him it was the counselor's job to give her best opinion. So he trusts whatever she says. He applied anyways, and got in. He took the acceptance letter, made a copy, and taped them to both the principal and counselor's door with "Thanks for nothing" written on both. He didn't even go to that school. He couldn't afford it. But it was the principle of the matter. We had a French teacher who was really bad and most people barely tolerated. It happened a few times that whoever arrived first would stand outside her door as if waiting for her to show up and unlock it. And the rest of the class would just queue up behind them pretending to believe them. Meanwhile, the teacher would just be sitting inside wondering where her class was. Edit. To all the people asking if we went to the same school. Pretty sure we didn't. It was not in the US. Funny to hear this happened in other places too. Last year our school fetched in a ban on backpacks and bags in general since they were apparently a safety hazard. 2 days later some guy in my year group comes in carrying his books and pencil case in a microwave. Dude made national news. A kid was passing notes. And the teacher caught him and insisted he had to give the note so she could read it out loud. He ate the note. One of my classmates got sent to the office for wearing gang colors. Because he has a red Marine Corps bandana tied to his backpack. The rest of the year he wore a pinstripe suit with vest and carried a fedora. My daughters both went to a Catholic high school. My younger one had a bit of a wild streak. The girls were required to wear a skirt every day to school. My daughter did not care for this rule and wore her skirt around her head one day since the dress code required the students to wear a skirt. Just not wear. I was told that she was wearing spandex underneath. That's how my daughter got a new rule in her high school dress code. My high school was always issuing new dress code rules for the girls. Mini skirts had to be longer than your arm. No tube tops. Etc. One day, all the boys dressed in drag. Breaking all the rules. No violation because the dress code specified only girls. Elementary school had a ban on extreme hair colors. My brother shows up with fire truck red hair. Principal stops us both as we're entering the school and she's going off on my brother. She's berating him. Saying, "Who do you know that has red hair like that?" Double quote. Without skipping a beat. Ronald McDonald. Principal just grabbed him, drug him into the office. My 4th grade brain was in shock that he just won up to grown up like that. She called my dad and he promptly didn't give her FCK and months later bro went from red to green to purple. Okay, so we need to have clear backpacks. Right? This kid puts quite the vulgar image depicting the counselor on one of his notebooks and packs it against the edges of the pack. "Hey Joe. Aren't you supposed to be in class?" Double quote. "Yeah." Double quote. And then BSP. One word. Doesn't look like much in text. But he said it such full acceptance and resolution that the teacher didn't follow up or say anything else. Just, "Okay. Got it. You're not going. I'll move on and not waste any more time here." And they kept walking. Sometimes attitude is everything. Sometimes you can say a lot with a single word. I went to a Catholic grade school growing up that had a strict boys' hair length policy. It couldn't touch the collar of your shirt and I wanted long hair. So the principal came in one day to talk to the class. When she was leaving the room she called me out for my long hair in front of my classmates. My response was to point to the cross hanging above the door and said Jesus had long hair. She didn't know what to say right away and seemed embarrassed, but then pulled me outside and yelled at me to get it cut. Don't mess with Catholic nuns. In my private school, boys were required to wear a collared shirt. It really wasn't enforced. Until one day it was. I was wearing a sweater without a collared shirt underneath and I had to go back to the dorm and change. I argued that I didn't look ratty or underdressed at all. But they said rules were rules. The next day I wore a white t-shirt with a collar, cut off from one of my older shirts, stapled to it. It looked terrible. But rules are rules. In 3rd grade, early 90s. My brother did not want to participate in some sort of multiple class activity. He just hung around the edges until a teacher approached him and told him, "Now dear, you can't be here without participating." Double quote. Brother took what she said to heart. And waited for a chance to slip away. He made it about 3 miles before a family friend noticed him and drove him the rest of the way home. I remember mom being upset at him. but even more angry at the school for taking 4 hours to notice he was gone when they took a head count after lunch. The canteen stopped selling sachets of red sauce due to the mess some kids were making. My friend carried a huge bottle of red sauce in his bag for at least a month and provided illegal red sauce for the cost of 5p per squirt. Made a fortune. This Josh kid I knew had to take a shit. Asked if he could go to the bathroom. And the teacher wouldn't allow him a hall pass in high school. Which is the dumbest f-king thing ever invented anyway. So he got up, walked to the front of the room and shit his pants in front of the class. Then blamed the teacher for it. I was in a Christian high school at the time. The day before winter break rolls around and I had packed a few Toblerone chocolate bars and some notes for the teachers I most appreciated, with the intention of leaving them as a Christmas gift. Before school, the principal made a public announcement that students were not to give any teachers any gifts unless we were going to give all teachers the same gift. This was obviously a bit of a problem since I couldn't exactly come back the next day with additional candy bars. So I marched into her office to address this issue. Upon entering the office, I made a show of opening a chocolate bar and breaking off exactly one piece and placing it on her desk. I told her that I was going to give her a full candy bar, but I now had to share her chocolate bar with other teachers that I didn't really care so much about anyways. That rule was quietly lifted. In 11th grade, now 30 years ago, we were told to use Memorial Day as a weather makeup day from Hurricane Hugo. Us students, and many teachers, felt this was disrespectful and suggested to just add the day to the end of the school year. The state insisted. Very few people showed up for school, including me, my brother, and most of the faculty. My brother missed enough school during the year that the school required he attend summer school. The penalty for not attending summer school? You'll be kicked out of summer school. So he never went. And they didn't hold him back, because he knew all the material. I had a teacher who got into a power struggle with every reasonably smart kid, so we tended not to try in her class. As a result, she began to grade the progress monitoring tool we used. This proved to me that the tool didn't matter. If it did, she would have graded it from the start instead of waiting until she realized she looked bad. So I began to fail every test I took on the platform. She was really angry at me and told me to call my parents. But my parents backed me because choosing to fail is not a violation of any rule. I had a friend in high school who would stand around on campus nonchalantly smoking cigarettes, and would bring beer to drink at break and lunch. He gave 0 FKs who saw him, and oddly enough he never got in trouble for it. He recently got out of prison. There was a presentation on vaping last year by some poor woman from an advocacy group or something. After every sentence, or whenever she paused, the whole assembly, all 300 kids in my grade, would give a massive standing ovation. We weren't stopped until we had done it like 15 times. Blistering heat to the point of people passing out. We're all forced to wear black trousers. We're dying of the heart and a guy comes in shorts. Gets sent home only to return after reading the school rules on uniform. He is in a school colors plaid skirt. F-king legendary. Not me but my friend's dad, so a good 50 years ago. His teacher told him his tie was the most important part of the uniform and he had to wear it no matter what. That lunchtime he gathered half his school year, and the next day, about 100 people turned up wearing nothing but underwear and a tie. In 5th grade I saw a kid punch another kid across the face during playtime and run away from school. They just let him go. Best friend in senior year wore a t-shirt with a handwritten "fuck Bush." That'd be Bush 43. Not 41. English teacher told him to go into the bathroom and turn it inside out. He returns from the bathroom with a handwritten "fuck censorship" on the inside of the shirt. Late 80s. My high school banned tank tops, but they were allowed with something over them. They also banned mesh or sheer shirts, only allowed with something under them. Guy I knew, pretty much every day, wore a tank top with a mesh shirt over it. In 6th grade this kid used to smoke cigarettes, drink whiskey, and carry a knife in class. He was finally expelled after sitting on the teacher's desk and masturbating during a class movie day. A guy I know ran a campaign to lift my old high school's strict policy on facial hair, which is to have none unless religiously exempt, which they gave you a card for that and probably others called the beard badge. He refused to shave and had a banner and shirts made that said with a great beard comes great responsibility. Double quote. At my middle school you weren't allowed to use phones on campus, including after school. A lot of my friends and I had no choice but to stay late after school, so we asked our security guards if we could use our phones, and his answer was, as long as your butt is on this campus. You can't use your phones until after 4. We also had a rule saying that once you left campus, you can't come back without a reason, like an extracurricular activity. Lucky for us, there was a sidewalk right outside the school that we could sit on while still having our feet on the campus. So we would sit our asses down on the sidewalk and still be on campus. We could use our phones and we could still stay at school. Not a specific person, but when a heatwave hit the UK a few years ago and schoolboys in many schools started wearing skirts in protest of having to wear trousers in the scorching heat because there was no stipulation of gender in the uniform regulations. These lads are only a few years younger than me, and back in my school days wearing a skirt would get you called gay and ostracized. So it impresses me both in the sense of how fast times have changed and because being technically correct is the best kind of correct. School rules stated, a tie must be worn. So for final year exams, one smartass came in wearing it as a hippie headband, pointing out that nowhere was it stated where the tie should be worn. 1973. Happy days. I was expelled on a whim by my Catholic school vice principal. It happened in front of a room full of about 70 students. On my way out he snidely remarked, "Let us know how local public school treats you." Double quote. So I looked at my books in my hands and on top was the edited school version of the Bible. I got pissed and held it up and said, "Well, if I'm going to local public school, I guess I won't be needing this, will I?" And slam dunked it into the wastebasket. I went to a very Christian school where on Halloween we were allowed to dress up for that day, but we couldn't wear any unholy outfits, like ghosts, demons, or basically anything scary, or witches. Now, my friend had an idea to screw over the teachers, so the next day she showed up in a witch costume. But it was a 17th century Salem witch trials witch. She's wearing a Puritan dress and holding a Bible. The teacher asked who she was. She would say, "I'm a witch." The teachers were put in a situation where she was technically a witch, but it was historical blah blah blah. She did end up at the principal's office for breaking the rules. She got to wear it though. Someone stole a key from the janitor. He just left them on his desk. It happened to be a universal key to all the locks, except for the server room. The server room although had a second hidden door which they found. They came in after school and stole the servers from the school. All the grades and data for the students were on those servers. The teachers had to figure out how to recreate all the students' grades, which honestly they did poorly. Pretty much everyone passed every class. You could just argue for a better grade.